Hello. Welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast.
The mind remains tense when it is restlessly turning over personal problems, worrying about financial matters or the conflicts of daytime employment, or fretting over the troubles of the world. A mind so strained and tense cannot relax, even in sleep. Night passes in uneasy dreams. The body is not refreshed as it should be.
Well, it's the fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic.
Relaxed!
You relaxed yet, Ben? Podcast in the entire Fox Chapel area.
You can learn to relax from time to time during the day so that nervous tension never builds up to an unpleasant degree. Nervous tension.
Nervous tension, Ben.
Is that the avalanches?
Oh, close. Good shout. Lemon jelly.
Lemon jelly.
But definitely.
Same genre.
Yeah. If you've got a Spotify list for one, the other will come up.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So good. We're talking about one of my favorite topics today, anxiety.
Yeah, you know what would make it better if we talk about anxiety about money. That'd be like the gold standard.
Anxiety about money.
That would be
or provision. Well, yeah. I don't know. It's kind of irrelevant. No one feels that at all.
It's such a fascinating subject. For me, it's a sore point in my kind of, I think probably childhood experiences. The recidivative sore point for me has always been money and fears or anxieties about it. And I think anxiety maybe is distinct from fear. It means to be troubled in Greek, or to promote one's own interests.
Anxiety doesn't have quite the same. Fear has a clearly identified object. I'm afraid of X.
Yeah.
Anxiety is more like you're in the woods and you're worried that something might jump out at you, but you're not really sure what it is. So
fear is face to face with a bear, and anxiety is I'm in the woods. I wonder what's there.
Yeah, and is there going to be? Do I have enough? It's rehearsing the mental checklist over and over again.
And that's the funny thing about that Lemon Jelly song, which is kind of, they're satirizing one of those self-help records you could buy in the 60s. But the funny thing about it is that it does reference this kind of churning over of problems in the mind and not being able to sleep. This link between anxiety and insomnia seems to be pretty prevalent.
Yes. It is for most everyone.
Yeah.
Just for the listener, you're probably going to hear some construction sounds going on. There's no good time to podcast.
What percentage of our podcasts have been interrupted by concrete trucks and cranes? And
I think it's part of our brand, actually. It's sort of our trademark.
It's like London, always under construction.
I'm not anxious about it. Are you?
Yeah, I'm annoyed. So anxiety, this is actually the buzzword at the moment. We both have read different books by the same author, a man called Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt! Which you have to say it like that because Jordan Peterson is always talking about him.
He always sounds a little like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like Adolf Hitler though. Doesn't have a French accent. So
that's true.
So Jonathan Haidt, fascinating scholar. He's written a couple of books. I'm reading The Anxious Generation. You read the book before that.
The Coddling of the American Mind and The Righteous Mind.
Oh, yeah.
Why good people are divided by religion and politics.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, The Coddling of the American Mind was very interesting about how basically we've been raising a generation of young people and under the idea that we need to value safety and we need to protect them because the world is a dangerous place, and so you need to protect the mind, protect the young from dangerous or traumatic ideas and speech. And it fails to take account of the fact that humans are anti-fragile, what he calls anti-fragile, which is basically we encounter a stimulus, sometimes a negative stimulus, and sometimes are damaged by that, and then we become stronger actually in response to that exposure.
Which is why throwing a baby in the air, dangling the baby upside down, jumping out from behind a corner and saying boo to your toddler, teasing your teenager, really, really, really important because it trains the mind to understand that shock, surprises, dangers are survivable.
They actually become less neurotic.
Yeah.
Anxiety is a big issue.
It is. So his latest book, The Anxious Generation, is really fascinating. He finds that each generation of Americans is significantly more anxious than the one before. And specifically, when he's talking about anxiety, he's not talking about the Greek concept we've got here in Scripture as such, or the kind of general phrase that we might say, I'm a bit worried about my test, my exam, or whatever. He's speaking from the DSM about a diagnosable mental disorder, saying that 20-25% of people in the youngest generation have a diagnosable mental disorder of anxiety right now, which is a huge number, a huge number. And he will draw several parallels or bits of statistic together to kind of back up what he thinks might be causing it, or at least exacerbating it. And there's a clear link in his mind between social media technology and anxiety and its use. And it's particularly its use when young. And he just makes an obvious point. He says, in history, if you had 1,000 pairs of eyes fixed on you all at once, you were probably the king or the dinner.
One of the two.
Yeah. And so our interactions are, he calls embodied and synchronous. So I'm sitting with you right now, I'm talking to you. I can see whether you're following me or not because you're nodding or not nodding or whatever, happy, sad, and I can adjust how I speak to you live because we're together.
Yes.
At the same time in the same place. Well, the problem with all of this technology is that anyone listening to this thing that we're doing right now, they're not with us in the room. They can't see us. And maybe
we could be wearing funny hats for all they know.
We could be wearing very funny hats. It's too hot for a hat.
Maybe we got face tattoos yesterday.
Maybe we've gone crazy. And then also they may be listening to this in a year's time. So it's a very different thing. If you get bullied by someone online, they might feel more likely or more comfortable to bully you because they're not sitting there in front of you seeing what it's actually doing to you. Yeah. People have road rage. They don't behave like that in the grocery store.
Perhaps we're judged more harshly on this conversation. If we say something wrong here, than we would if we were like face to face with the person who was just like sitting in a coffee shop with us or here in this other chair, and maybe they would have shot like a quizzical look in person, but instead they might dismiss us for any number of reasons.
Or they might say, well, I didn't like the way that guy said the thing, but I saw he's got the same T-shirt as me, so we're kind of friends. Yeah, and there are all sorts of things that humans do to bond that become difficult when we introduce technology between us. So The Anxious Generation, very important book. Clearly anxiety is on the rise, and it's fascinating that although anxiety is on the rise, it's a timeless issue because Christ addresses it as one of his 18 so what sections in the Sermon on the Mount. And in particular, his comment about anxiety comes in the context of money.
Money or provision, or
provision.
Is it specifically money, or is it like the whole of having food and shelter and the basic needs?
Let's read it. There's a kind of extrapolation or an evolution of the argument. So verse 24, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Therefore, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, and about your body or what you put on. So yes, I think you're right. It begins with money and then it evolves into a general discussion of provision and maybe appearance.
Money is simply a magic token that's a representative token for provision, right? Yeah. It's instead of having eggs or something to trade, you have
coins.
A little coin. Yeah, you traded your eggs for. Yeah.
And he does go on to talk about in the next passage how flowers are pretty. And why are you worried about what you're going to wear? And it looks like it seems to be worried about whether what you're wearing looks nice as opposed to are you naked.
Yeah,
so it goes money, basic provision, and what we might call luxuries.
Oh.
So
the adornment of your life.
Yes.
Almost getting into like, okay, let's just read it. Look at the birds of the air. Well, I'll just read it from the beginning. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing?
That is technically the end of our passage. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Awesome. Oh, do I get to preach the next one then?
You do the lilies, yeah.
Oh, no way.
So,
Oh, that's great. I love that.
So, yeah, I clearly money is a thing. It was definitely a thing for me. I still go through this. In fact, I went through it yesterday. So, member of the church has a promotion. They're leaving the city and going away. And, the anxiety kicks in. It's like, well, that's going to affect our income.
Bottom line.
And very quickly, the Lord said, what are you preaching on next week? And, how you doing? And don't you see that it's a blessing to rely on me? And maybe I did this and it's not your kingdom. And I had a great conversation with the Lord about it. But then I had a sleepless night where I kind of basically had shorter and shorter iterations of the same conversation over and over and over again, where the old anxiety came up and was killed off each time more quickly than the time before, but obviously not really killed off, more just kind of beaten up.
Yeah.
So I had an anxious night in the context of a prayerful night.
Yeah.
So
prayer was the battling against that.
Yes. Anxiety was fought with prayer last night. And that's an interesting thing. So when Jesus is saying, don't be anxious, I don't think it's like that self-help record we played for fun.
Yeah.
Just think yourself out of this trap.
I think I think that's right on. In my own life, so this is, there's been a kind of a confluence of those two factors. On the one hand, my family has like a history of mental illness, and I think I sort of inherited some of that. So I actually take psychopharmaceuticals in order to be able to like kind of, I think it balances some of the inherent flaws in my brain chemistry to be able to operate. So rewind like 10 years. I'm in seminary. I'm looking at sort of the end of seminary and where am I going to get a job? What am I going to do? Was this a giant waste of time? Am I a total failure? All this stuff. I need this.
Well, that got big fast.
Yeah, it got real big.
So we got to an existential, fundamental character and identity, life direction level.
Yeah, it's like a loop that gains speed as you loop around it, and it keeps amplifying and Yeah, it's feedback. And so Jenna called it couch nights because I would always like we'd go to bed, I'd be great, and then like right as I'm laying in bed, the anxiety would spike, my heart rate would shoot through the roof, and I would just start squirming. And finally,
so much that you actually had a phrase for it. Yeah,
and I started kind of self-medicating. And that was when I was like, all right, we need to,
I'm fascinated.
Go to therapy.
Can you tell us?
And
what was the self-medication? Can you tell us?
Oh, it was like Unisom. I wasn't drinking myself to sleep.
Over the counter stuff. But
Unisom is, yeah. But that's like a short, we all know where that pathway kind of can lead. And a lot of people will get into, there are people get into alcohol addictions, any number of things for that very reason.
Drown the noise.
That there's this buzzing, looping.
There's a fascinating scene in the SEAL Team TV show where Jason Hayes comes back from Afghanistan and comes back to his apartment, and he sits in this really uncomfortable chair in the kitchen, and he sits in this really uncomfortable chair, and he turns the microwave on and just leans his head against the microwave. He just has to have this humming noise.
Yeah,
silence is too much, and that he's trying to disrupt or drown out. These are the two options, right? Disrupt or drown out.
And it was like that, I think. And there was that combination, and it wasn't all entirely just like I could pray my way out of it, right? Like, spiritual discipline was one thing, and training my mind has been an important thing. But there was also an element in which like some of this was like the world, the flesh, and the devil is playing on my own brain chemistry. And so you really have to come at these things from two angles sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that I do proactively now, like, right. I found that my sister both and I, we both need medicine in order to be able to operate normally. It's just how we work. And then also there's certain things that, I do in order to kind of live into this, remind myself of do not be anxious.
Yeah.
All the dings and buzzers are going on.
Well, I mean,
it's ironic,
what's one of the things that had me awake was the fact that my air conditioning unit was broken. And so in the middle of a 90-degree heat wave.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just texting him back.
Should we pause this podcast for a second?
I've texted him live on air.
Wow.
Brian is the man, and he's going to come and look at it this afternoon, so I can relax.
Brian Zimmerman?
No.
Oh.
No, Brian from CNR Roofing and Heating, the best. Oh. So I was intrigued earlier, right? So I referenced a kind of, what can we call it? An increasing pattern over the night of the anxiety, prayer, fix, re-anxious again, prayer, fix, speeding up, right? So each iteration of the anxiety loop actually, for me, got better and better as the night went on, right? And you referenced an earlier part in your life and ministry where, in a sense, the opposite was happening, that things were spiraling out of control. Yeah. So that's intriguing that we both have described phases of our life where we've wrestled with the same problem, and it's either been getting better or worse. The feedback has either been getting better or worse. That's interesting. Well,
I mean, I think it's like a lot of things that everyone's situation is different. Everyone's biology is different. I mean, there is a parasympathetic nervous system element.
Nervous tension. Yeah.
Nervous tension. That's like built, and everyone has everyone got different, a different set of hardware to deal with. And so for some of us, what you need is daily prayer throughout the day.
Gotcha.
Some of us, I have to go for a run, and do that.
Right.
I just have to calm my nervous system down. But there's a huge, I think what Jesus is dealing with here is he's really, he's coming at it from the way that we, how our belief, our fundamental belief about reality
he's
affects
actually posing a theological solution to it as opposed to a technique.
And it's not just a physical problem. There is an element of what do I believe is true about the world fundamentally.
Well, the lie amplifies at night, doesn't it? So resting in the lordship of the Lord is the solution. He says, look, you can only serve one master. You can't serve two masters. Serve is the word for slave. You can't slave for two lords, two masters, two owners. You're going to hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. For example, you cannot serve God and money, the personification of money as a god. You can't worship and serve and be owned by God with his identity imputed upon you and be his, or have the identity of the dollar symbol on you and be just purely the personification of the Reichmark. You can't be one. You can't be both, one or the other. Therefore, I tell you, because of that, do not be anxious about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink, or about your body. What do you mean, therefore? Well, because you are already a slave to the sovereign of the universe, you are owned by him, you're going to be fine. The Lord is not going to let one of his chattel die.
A servant is, I mean, the exchange of being a servant is that you are provided for by your master.
Yeah.
In the ancient world. So it's not ultimately up to you.
If the master's good.
If the master's good.
So is money a good master? Was another question you could ask.
And maybe this is one of those things, you know how, I think C.S. Lewis talks about this, that a lot of attributes that are good in God are wicked when applied to human beings. So like pride, God thinks of himself as the most valuable being in the universe, and that's a good thing because it's true. He is. I wonder if being a slave or a servant of God, God being our master who possesses us, that is inherently good. But slavery is evil because no master, any lesser master will only abuse.
Yeah.
And so anytime a human being pretends to be the master of another human being,
right,
that's wickedness.
Well, and this is why, we've said over and over again with this series that remembering the intro and the interlude is so important to reading these practical so what sections.
Yeah.
Because if you return to the intro, you have all of these blesseds. You're going to be blessed by the righteousness of God imputed upon you, by grace as a gift. And if you return to the Lord's Prayer, you have forgiveness and you have the intimacy of a relationship with the Father.
Yeah.
And so what's the distinct feature of our Master, Jesus Christ, is that he serves you.
Yeah.
He adopts the posture of a servant and puts you first.
The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many.
What a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
So in that concept, in that sentence you've just quoted, you get both the concept of mastery and money. Ransom.
Yeah.
He came to pay, right? He came to pay the manumission price of your release from slavery to the wrong thing and purchase you into slavery, into the right thing.
Yeah.
He bought you from the slave market and took you to his own home.
So I really I'm finding like the Sermon on the Mount it's this extremely pragmatic document about how to live out like the consequences, the major doctrines of the gospel are right there, right? You have justification by faith alone through grace alone, right at the beginning of the Beatitudes.
Pretty clear.
You have the doctrine of adoption right there in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven.
Yeah.
Like God is your Father who loves you, who cares for you. You've been adopted into his family.
Yeah.
You're an heir. Therefore, do not be anxious.
Because you can rest in the lordship of the Lord,
the
goodness of God.
And you're belonging to him and his promise to provide for you.
So these anxieties, what are they really all about? They're about a concern that the outcome will not be good, I guess.
And maybe
So
that's
what
a
if?
sign that we're serving money.
Yeah, that we're owned by money. And that is a huge irony, because the kind of story of the world is that if you have lots of money, then you're kind of like a king. You own things, and you are what you own. And look what you can own, and look how safe and secure you'll be if you own all of these things. And that like all aspects of what the enemy offers, it's actually a trap. And the Lord's Prayer ends with lead us not into temptation. Doesn't mean that God's in the business of tempting people. What it means is lead us into the place that's not tempting. Lead us away from temptation would be a poor translation, but a good concept for concept.
It would be dynamic equivalence, as they call it.
I think it would be, yeah. Lead us into the not temptation place.
Into the not temptation.
But deliver us from evil. That's really significant. We think that evil could easily mean evil one. It's possible. And it would be to rescue us.
Deliverance.
Yeah, draw us out of...
What's that word? What's the word there? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. It's right, raiomai. So it's a middle. It's an obsolete verb.
Hrusai.
Yeah. It means
Hruomai.
to rescue or to deliver.
What's an obsolete verb? It means they don't use it anymore?
Yeah, it was old then.
It was old then.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's really old now.
That is, fascinating.
You could do a little bit of a dig deep in. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's something to do with flowing water. Interestingly, the original kind of idea behind it was something to do with flowing water. So, this idea of just kind of getting you out. I think, like, remember when you got out of Shawshank Redemption and you crawled through that kind of sewer? Like, just get me out of here.
And then the thunder and lightning is coming down. And he's in the rain. He's in the river, and he's free.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Shawshank Redemption, you've got to see Shawshank Redemption.
That would do. This idea of getting out of this brooding place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deliver us from evil. And one of the evils that God delivers his people from is anxiety.
Yeah.
So how do we? So what? How do we how do you not be anxious? How do you identify? Here's a big thing. How do you identify if you're serving money?
Okay. You probably are.
Right? Yeah.
And you're probably anxious. Because the greatest sermon ever wouldn't have addressed a load of stuff that people aren't interested in. This is why I talk about Formula One so much, because it's where the hearts of the people are.
Yeah, that's right. So, everybody's wondering how Lando Norris is doing this week.
A boy came up to me in the lobby with a Lego model of Lando Norris's car that he'd made and had with him in church to show me on the day I mentioned
He must have been so excited.
I was excited.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I actually almost interrupted. You were in another conversation, and I almost interrupted it to introduce you.
Yeah, it was new members were there, and I was talking to them. I saw the car, and I was like, I've got to get out of this conversation. There's a car here, man. Look at that.
I hope they're not listening to this podcast. Don't take it personally, guys.
I'm having dinner with him on Monday.
We have ADHD.
It's so funny. It's so funny. Jesus can only be talking about stuff that people really deal with. He's got 18 shots at this thing, and he's the Lord of the universe. So when he talks about rage and lust and judgmentalism and cold disdain for others, that isn't because he's just like fishing. Let's see how this lands.
I wonder if
he knows.
He knows what's going on. He knows, and this actually this passage has always been one of those that especially hits me.
Yeah, me too.
Really gets right into my existential situation. And because anxiety is such an ever-present manifestation of sin and just brokenness in my own life. So we need the reassurance of the gospel. And if you are anxious, I think go back to beatitude number 1. Right?
Just admit it.
Admit it. I'm anxious. I got nothing, Lord. I'm an anxious mess.
And I know the truth. Jesus says, proclaim some doctrine over yourself. Just preach some sound doctrine over yourself. And I think part of this is going to involve doing that and just shortening the loop and being anxious again. And maybe you can look, if you've been in this thing, it's harder if you're a new Christian, but if you've been in this thing for a while, God's probably answered other prayers before.
Yep.
And then you're in this kind of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of a thing. Do you say, okay, I've flipped ahead 10 times. So,
yeah.
Oh, have we got guests in the studio? Oh, Bridget's here. And Doug, you want to join the podcast?
There they are.
They do not want to join the
Bridget
podcast.
gave us that look.
Quite evidently.
She gave us the, I will join this podcast over my dead body look.
It came so close. Do you say I've flicked ahead 10 times, so the next one has to be a tails? I'm pushing my luck here. Or do you say God's track record of doing the same thing as the sovereign in the universe is starting to look like a pattern? I mean, he's been doing this thing for infinity time and always been the same.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the chances of God changing his character right now are pretty slim.
He gives you, that's the thing. This is why young Christians need old Christians.
Now, fundamentally, right, I agree with that. Fundamentally, what is this all about? Well, Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Haidt would say fundamentally what this is all about is death. Actually, fundamentally, this is all about death. Your anxiety about running out of money is about death. Your anxiety actually about not having a nice piece of clothing to wear, it's about death. It's kind of social death. People won't want me. I won't have power.
Is that Freud's or is that Jung?
I don't know. Probably Jung, I think, actually.
Yeah, and Jung said
Sounds
everything
like
is
it.
about... Well, no, maybe later Freud.
Yeah.
Jim Edwards might know.
Jim would know.
Jim would know.
So I say, okay, now this is where the doctrine, theology, and history comes in. Because what does Christ do? He dies and he rises from the grave, and he promises to come again.
The fear of death. Death, where is your sting?
It's been defeated. So fundamentally, ultimately, there is nothing to be anxious about because the only thing you're really at base worried about is defeated already.
If you die as a total loser, you are poor in spirit, repenting before the Lord in your last moments, then you have everything.
Yeah.
And in 800 billion infinities of years of joy with the King ahead of you.
That's what Jesus says, verse 27, which of you by being anxious can add a single hour to his span of life? So it really is all about life and death.
They agree.
They always remind me a bit of those lazy judges in the Supreme Court who don't write a full opinion and they just say, I've read the opinion of my learned brother and I agree. I'm like, we have this long conversation and they come in at the end and they agree.
Is that all you have to say?
Yeah.
I think they're just mad because we've not been letting them out of the closet as often.
Played too much lemon jelly. This has been a podcast of Christchurch Fox Chapel. We're very glad that you were joining us. Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.